Mr. Tamer Suleimanov, First Deputy Chief of Staff of the President of Republic Kazakhstan and Chairman of MC12, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, Director General of the WTO, Deputy Directors General of the WTO, fellow ministers, ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen. I greet you on behalf of the government and people of Grenada. I also wish to offer apologies on behalf of the Honorable Alvin Bril, Minister of Trade, who is unavoidably absent from our deliberations at MC12. Grenada also associates with the statements on behalf of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, OECS, the Caribbean Community, CARICOM, and the Africa, Caribbean, and Pacific ACP states. Grenada's economy grew strongly prior to the COVID-19 shock, supported by the implementation of important reforms and favorable external conditions. Real GDP growth averaged 4.5% during 2014 to 19. Real GDP contracted by 14% in 2020 due to the coronavirus. Real GDP expanded by 5.6% in 2021. Output is projected to expand by 3.6% in 2022. However, Grenada is now experiencing an increase in commodity prices, representing an important headwind to its economic outlook. Indeed, we are living in precarious times. We are still confronted with a once-in-a-generation public health pandemic. For decades, we have also had to contend with a climate crisis and the environmental emergency. In more recent years, we have observed a dangerous trend towards hyper-nationalism, deglobalization, and multilateral backsliding, each of which makes our lives as a global citizens more complicated rather than better. If I may now say a few words about the ongoing fishery subsidies negotiations. While we are small island developing states, SEADs, we are also large ocean and big sea states. As you are well aware, Grenada is surrounded by water. Therefore, our marine resources play a major role in the socio-economic lives of our citizens. However, we are also aware that, along with the rest of the international community, we must also play our role in protecting marine life. This can be done by concluding negotiations on a balanced fishery subsidies agreement, which addresses illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, as well as one which curbs subsidies which contribute to overcapacities and overfishing. Of course, a final agreement must also ensure appropriate and effective special and differential treatment for developing and least developed countries as per our negotiating mandate. On electronic commerce, Grenada has a systemic interest on this issue. We see e-commerce and the broader digital economy, including developments in areas such as blockchain technologies, as the next frontier in terms of the acceleration of global economic growth and development, including for SEADs. Therefore, we are intent on not being left behind. However, to secure beneficial outcomes on e-commerce, we are also aware that there is a need for us to close digital divide within our country and between our countries and others. It will require higher levels of investment in infrastructure, modernization of the legal and regulatory framework, and training and capacity building among others. It is in this context that we support the renewal of the e-commerce work program, including the development dimension and the renewal of moratorium on customs duty on electronic transmissions. Furthermore, given the inequities which we have seen in access to COVID-19 vaccines, especially during the worst phases of the pandemic, we believe that it is important for WTO members to finalize an agreement on an intellectual property waiver for COVID-19 vaccines. We also support a ministerial declaration on a WTO response to the pandemic, which can also serve as a blueprint for future crises. We also call for the immediate restoration of the two-tiered dispute settlement system, long seen as the jewel in the crown of the WTO. As I prepare to close, allow me to state that as states with small open economies, Grenada rely heavily on predictability, transparency, and developmental benefits of the multilateral trading system, MTS. We are interested in a WTO which is modern, accommodating of the developmental interests of all members, especially developing and least developed countries, and one which takes its rightful place at the center of global trade and economic governance. Grenada remains committed to playing a constructive role at MC12 and looks forward to joining important and meaningful consensus decisions. Thank you.